Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today we're taking a look at an Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean, currently in my opinion one of the most undervalued watches in the market. A review of a modern day Omega has to start with the movement, as Omega is the only brand using the Coaxial Escapement in their movements, and in that regard they remind me of Mazda and their pursuit of the rotary engine. Both offer better efficiency than conventional technology, on paper at least, but in reality both have issues that have made almost everyone give up and just use the proven technology. But just as Mazda kept pushing the development of rotary, Omega kept pushing the development of the coaxial escapement, and after years and generations of movements, they finally made it right with their 8000 movement series. But what makes the coaxial so much better and different than the classical Swiss lever escapement used by almost every other brand for the last couple of centuries? The Swiss lever escapement is actually pretty inefficient, but somehow it works. The escapement is used for two things in a watch. It is used for stopping the movement from winding down uncontrollably, and it is also used for pushing the balance wheel to give it energy for the next beat. Since it uses the same surfaces for both stopping and pushing, it is designed as a compromise. While locking or stopping is done in a pretty efficient way, the pushing part is not. Due to the angles used on the pallet fork and the escapement wheel, pushing is done by sliding one against the other to the side. The easiest way to visualize it is by imagining you're trying to push your car forward by standing behind it and sliding your hands from the left side of the car to the right. It causes a lot of friction and a lot of energy is wasted, with just a small amount used for actual forward movement. The coaxial escapement, on the other hand, designed by George Daniels, a legendary master watchmaker, separates the stopping from the pushing part, but places them on the same axis, thus the name coaxial. This separation means you can shape the parts used for locking to be good at stopping, and parts used for pushing to be more efficient in pushing. Again, to use our car analogy, you're pushing your car forward by standing behind it and actually pushing it forward. You have almost no friction, and most of the energy is transferred where you need it. This lack of friction means less wear and tear, less lubrication, and in the end a better timekeeping performance. This alone makes this movement interesting and technically advanced, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. Omega also uses ceramic ball bearings for the rotor that never need to be lubricated, a DLC-coated mainspring barrel to reduce friction even more, and it uses a silicone hairspring and amagnetic materials on the timekeeping parts of the movement, which makes this movement resistant to magnetic fields of up to 15,000 Gauss. For comparison, the Rolex Milgauss, whose selling point is magnetic resistance, can withstand up to 1000 Gauss, so 15 times less than this Omega. Also, unlike Rolex, Omega gives you the pleasure of actually seeing the movement through the sapphire exhibition caseback, and to be honest, it is a really handsome looking movement. When it comes to the watch itself, it is a looker as well. Introduced in 2005, the Planet Ocean is the top tier offering when it comes to Omega dive watches. I always liked the look, as I think it is both original and with the 6-9-12 markers and the asymmetrical professional case, full of Omega DNA from the past, unlike the currently more popular Seamaster 300 that I never really liked, as I always found it to be Omega's attempt at copying the Rolex Submariner, plus I always hated the skeletonized hands. But back to the Planet Ocean. It used to come in 42 and 45.5 millimeters, with both being too big for me, as Omega used to put T-shaped end links on their bracelets, increasing the lug-to-lug quite a lot. With the current generation, they not only switched to the small wrist-friendly U-shaped end links, but also changed the sizes of the lineup. Now the Planet Ocean comes in 43.5 and 39.5. This is the 39.5, although that spec is a bit deceiving, as the watch case itself is actually 40.5 while the bezel is 39.5. This makes it a perfect size for my 6.7-inch wrist, and with the already mentioned U-shaped end links, the lug-to-lug of the watch case is the actual total lug-to-lug with the bracelet. This version is also one of the thinnest Planet Oceans out there, with just over 14 mm in thickness. That thickness is the result of the only flaw the coaxial system has, as using more levels on a single axis does add thickness to the movement itself. But once strapped to my wrist, I must say I don't find the watch too thick. And that is coming from a guy who usually wears watches under 11. All the other hallmarks of a modern luxury diver are here as well. A 120-click butter-smooth bezel with a ceramic insert filled with what Omega calls liquid metal numerals that are actually pressed into the cutouts of the bezel, forming a seamless bond that you can hardly feel with your fingers. A ceramic dial that has a luxurious glossy finish and at certain lights looks impossibly black, just drawing you in. And finally, an adjustable clasp that gives you the ability to expand or shorten the bracelet on the go as your wrist expands and contracts during the day. The clasp is over-engineered and beautifully made, but with this variant it offers only 3 extendable positions, making Rolex's glide lock better in that regard. Despite the somewhat limited adjustability, I found the 3 positions more than enough for day-to-day fluctuations of my wrist. The glossiness of the dial is further emphasized with rhodium-plated hands and markers that many reviewers claim to be made out of white gold. But I have my doubts, as this is Omega we're talking about. If they used white gold, trust me, they would advertise it. All of these shiny surfaces do make this thing shimmer, which some people might find too much, but I personally love it, just as I love the orange details. The hands are long, faceted, and reach all the way to their markers, just the way I like it. And when you walk into a dark room, you reveal another little secret, the color-coded lume, with the hour markers and hour hand glowing in blue, while the minute hand and the lumed pip of the bezel, which are both used for diving, glow green. It is such a geeky and incredibly cool detail. With the hype surrounding the introduction of the new Seamaster 300 and the new Rolex Submariner, the Planet Ocean has kinda stepped out of the spotlight, which some find undeserving of such a great watch, me included. But the good thing about that is that you can get one of these at a bargain, especially if you go used. Even at retail, I would always choose this over the 300, despite the price difference. And when it comes to Rolex Submariner, well, this can be had for a fraction of the price, while being just as impressive. Yes, the Rolex has a better clasp, and the 12 mm of thickness makes it better everyday watch. But this uses arguably a better and more certainly a more interesting movement that you can actually enjoy looking at. For the next generation, if Omega just made it thinner, as they proved with the 300 they can, and maybe throw in actual white gold markers and hands, I think they would create a watch that's definitely as good or even better than the Submariner. Oh, and lose the outer AR coating, as that does scratch up over time. Anyways, that's it when it comes to this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and until the next video, bye.